Freediver fans, Jonathan here with you today, and I have got Kevin Mahaffey, one of our team divers, and we are going to talk about belt reels, all kinds of goodness around the belt reel, and slightly scary.
Not if you know what you're doing.
It's fair enough. Kevin, you use pole spears, spear guns. You kind of are all around good spearo in my opinion, right? And one of the things that we've talked about kind of off camera a little bit was the implementation of a belt reel. Tell me a little bit about that.
All right, yeah, so I pretty much always keep a belt reel mounted on my weight belt here.
Okay.
I like keeping it off to the right side. It's a backup, basically. So when I'm using a gun, even though I have a reel on my gun, it's my primary reel. You shoot a big fish, a kingfish, a wahoo, something
fast movers.
Fast,
right?
I've had within less than 5 seconds before I can make it back up to the surface.
Yeah.
And if you have a belt reel with a tuna clip, you have that option to let the belt reel work. With a pole spear, a little bit different. That's kind of your primary reel. You don't have a reel on there, so there's a couple different options, and we'll get into talking about how they all work.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the gun a little bit, right? So as you were mentioning, you shoot that, big king or wahoo, whatever, and he just takes off, right? And we'll have a clip there where you just see him sprinting. And just like you mentioned, right? They'll dump your entire reel on your gun, and if you don't have any kind of backup system, you have two options.
Let go of the gun?
Get drugged through the water and hope your shaft tears out, which you shouldn't hope that for very long, or let go of the gun, right? We've talked about this before in our other reel videos, that once you put a reel on your spear gun, it becomes disposable, right? So you need to have the mentality, right? The mindset that if I shoot a fish and I don't have a belt reel and I'm only shooting a reel on my gun, I need to be at some point able to let go of the gun. Do you agree?
I do, and I like my gun, and that's why I run a belt reel as backup.
Fair enough, yeah. A lot of us work hard for our money, and we use that money on spearfishing gear. So to not have to, have that be your first inclination, it's a nice safety. So just like what Kevin was talking about, right? So we have our belt and our belt reel. So on this specific item, the Rob Allen belt reel, you have this little cloth tab on here, and so all you got to do with this guy is pull this up and over, and this guy has now the ability to put on your belt. It just so happens like the color you picked. Look at that, orange and orange.
High viz.
And then you can pop this little bungee right over top of this little curved piece right here. The nice thing about this particular belt reel is this big, huge platform that sets against your body. That's good for two things, right? The primary one is as you're managing the reel line, it's not getting all wonky on you, all wobbly. It's nice and stabilized. And then the other thing is too, it's a little more comfortable. Some of the other ones that are out there that are really small, they can dig into the side of your hip, and you find that it's perfectly fine, comfortable swimming around with it?
I don't even notice it.
Don't even notice it. Nice, nice. So yeah, so that's kind of how they get mounted onto the your belt. Obviously, it's pretty important, the orientation as to which way you face this guy, right? Making sure this is being faced in the direction of your the front of your body. You would not want this guy going backwards, and that way it wouldn't do much good that way. The other thing that this tab is really nice for is, you want to talk about the tab a little bit? And
it's quick release. There's a few different options out there as far as quick releases. I like this one because you really have to be the one to take it off. I mean, it takes a little bit of manipulating. There's some others. I've actually lost a belt reel getting towed behind a boat, just enough water drag on it.
It's just too easy to pop off.
Too easy to pop off. Yeah. So if you are looking for, I do really like the idea of a quick release. You basically have that option. Instead of dumping your whole belt, you have that option to pull the tab and
ditch the belt reel only.
Ditch the belt reel if you wanted to. I've never been there, but it is nice. If you're diving and you don't want the belt reel on, don't want to take off all your weights, it's a pretty easy way to just get rid of the reel itself. But definitely look for this one and also the Headhunter one.
Yeah.
They both have nice
quick
quick tabs. They have these nice tabs you can grab.
Nice. And then obviously you mentioned too that the other option that you have is to ditch the whole belt. But if you're like me, I have a Batman belt. I've got like D-rings and knives and all kinds of junk and stuff that I need on my belt. So ditching that belt is more like, you know, half of my gear.
So what fish do you have to shoot to get spooled on this reel and on that reel?
I mean, wahoo would do that.
Yeah.
Kingfish will do that.
How deep are you diving?
I don't know. I'm not diving that deep. So like we've talked about, this is with the spear gun in particular, helping you get to the surface on those fast-moving fish. That way you can hit the surface and still get your breath and keep that fish hopefully on your gun without losing back at it. So that's spear guns. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some pole spears, something that is super popular right now in the summertime. So am I orienting this thing the same way?
Absolutely. So I'm going to keep it forward. The only difference is with the pole spear, we're going to add in another component.
Okay.
The bungee, a cord bungee. I like this Rob Allen one.
Yep.
Perfect length, little 1 meter. And then we're going to put this clip I'm going to keep on my reel.
Okay.
In general anyways, nice big tuna clip.
Like we talked about, a clip off to the gun, right?
Gives you the option, like I shoot this Rob Allen, I can go
boom
straight there to that. Takes no thinking. With a reel gun, you know, I'm going to set it up after I need it. With a pole spear, I'm going to keep it set up ahead of time.
Okay. Yeah, so great point, right? So what we like to do is having this tuna clip on your belt reel. So a really easy way to make that happen is you just give this guy a little pinch, punch it through the swivel, and then over top of the tuna clip. Some guys will run other pieces of like tackle to make this happen. I'm not a huge fan of that. If I can get away with the
Fewer
least
pieces the possible.
Yeah, exactly. The least amount of like material that I can get in between the two objects, the less likely I am to break something. So then once you have that on there, we're gonna do the exact same thing on the back of your pole spear. So I've seen this run two different ways. I've seen guys where they have this clipped here and then threaded through there, or they just run the bungee straight to the tuna clip and then put the tuna clip on the other end. It's up to you which way you want to do it. That doesn't change the functionality of it. So let's talk about the attachment points to our pole spear. We've got two main options.
Okay, so I personally shoot the Nordic Bantam. I like the hard attached back point here, especially if you're shooting big, powerful fish. You're potentially going to be pulling them out of the hole. I want to be pulling directly on the pole.
Okay.
Sometimes the fish is, you know, on a 8-foot pole. It's 8 foot up in. I'm not, you know, I'm not getting up in there. I like the ability to be pulling directly
on the 8-foot piece
on the pole. I would say the other option would be attaching it to the band, which is nice. Then you're not bringing that slack up the pole with you.
Yep.
But then you got to keep in mind you're working the bungee on the pole.
A bungee on a bungee, right? So with that, if you, like Kevin said, if you attach it straight to the back of the pole spear band, there's a couple things you want to keep in mind. Number one, you can't just attach it to any pole spear band, right? You need to make sure, like this Rob Allen bungee and like this Headhunter big game band, there is a core inside of it. So there is actually a piece of string, 1,000-pound string, that goes through this entire piece so that it can only stretch so far, right? Once it's reaching that end of that string, it stops stretching. That's super important. If you attach it to a regular pole spear band where it doesn't have that core, you can stretch it all the way until it snaps, right? So if this bungee were to actually fail, there is still the cord inside of that would keep you and your game attached, right? So it's definitely important that you do it that way, one way or the other. Like Kevin was mentioning, once you push it directly to the back of the pole, that's awesome for retrieving those guys. But we were talking again off camera of when you have this guy attached, right? You now only have the length of whatever line you have off the reel and the kind of droopiness of your bungee for your range, right? So talk about like how much line you pull off then.
Yeah, I mean, so how far is your effective range on your pole spear? I know me personally, I pull out a small section of reel line on top of that, and kind of give myself my bungee plus a little bit of reel line.
Okay.
I mean, you're talking maybe
5 feet or so.
4 or 5 feet.
Plus
of
the
range.
8 foot in front that you've got with the pole spear,
Right.
right?
So, I mean, to me with a pole spear, it's close quarter hunting anyways.
Absolutely.
And kind of get that extra little bit using using your belt reel versus just the length of that bungee there.
Yeah, and a lot of times people, I think, forget that when you're shooting a pole spear, most people will hit the fish and then hold on to the band, right? Well, now with a belt reel and bungee in place, I can let go of everything when I shoot my fish. So that's gaining you that extra 6 inches, 2 feet that you might need on especially those like fast moving fish, right? Like a mutton or something like that. Or even those caberas that are trying to take off from you.
Yeah, I think it's mandatory to have a belt reel with a pole spear because I think as far as safety goes, I don't want to be fighting the fish, especially once you start getting into some depth diving.
Yeah.
It's shoot the fish, let go. Now my only thought is
concern is getting to the surface.
Take my time, get to the surface. I have plenty of time with a belt reel, especially if you're shooting, a big grouper in a hole. We were doing a couple days ago in the Bahamas. You're shooting that fish. That is one dive, and now you take your time. You get to the surface, and now as a team, you go down and you're still attached. You're not leaving your pole that you probably don't want to see it disappear into a hole. It's still connected.
You just have a string, literally, that is attached, and you know exactly what it is. What I've found helps a lot for the team style diving that we absolutely love to implement, right? Is all too often I won't have a belt reel and I'll shoot a fish, I'll go up in a hole, and I'll be trying to explain, writing out a treasure map of where that fish is, right?
Takes you straight to the point.
And they follow that bright high vis line, exactly where the fish is, and there's no wasting valuable seconds for the next diver hunting for the fish that I've already shot, right? So I've found that is probably one of the biggest time savers for retrieving the fish is when you've got, and we all know it, right? In the Bahamas, there's these cave systems that are just crazy extensive. And so you may have shot this fish in this hole, but he wrapped around and came over to this hole. Well, without this high-vis line, I'm trying to explain to you how to get around the corner, or he may not even be in the same hole, and there's just takes that guesswork out of the play.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what we do is the diver who shot the fish has the belt reel on him. He'll actually swim up current a little bit and hold tension on the line out. I've seen two things happen. One, you may have gotten a great shot and the fish was only able to get a little way up into the hole. By getting the right angle on it, I've actually pulled the fish out from the surface.
Nice.
Easy, pull your line up, you got your fish. Your primary concern was getting up to the surface.
Yep.
But once you're up, you kind of put a little bit of tension on it and it pulled right out. Or when you're breathing up, you're pulling tension out the hole, your buddy goes down and is able to give it a little bit of tug. Now he doesn't have to swim the fish up, he just got it out the hole.
And now you do
he
the rest
comes
of
up
the
to the surface and now you pull it up. So it's giving you multiple options. Obviously every scenario is going to be a little bit different, but I like that it gives you kind of one more tool in your belt.
Yeah, exactly. One more Batman item. Nice. Very cool. I definitely think that it's something that in the pole spear world, it can be, I think, implemented much sooner than the spear gun world. So I personally don't like guys using belt reels in the spear gun world until they are very confident and comfortable in the water.
Line management's huge.
Exactly. And so that's something that we actually teach in the spearfishing class is exactly that, how to manage your line. Talk a little bit about after we've shot our fish, we're working with that fish, we get the fish out of the hole, what do I do with all of that line?
So that's huge. I mean, this is basically a tangle hazard. I mean, any kind of thin diameter line has the potential to wrap around you. So being aware of where this line is going, when you're swimming up, I like to keep one hand on it and actually slightly pull it away from my body.
As you're ascending to the surface.
Exactly. So this line is feeding out, and instead of just completely forgetting about where this line is going. Maybe there's a little bit of current, it's bringing it under my kicking legs, and before you know it, you're tangled up. I like to actually, as this line is feeding out, I pull this kind of out away from my body, and now it's going down. Maybe put a little bit of pressure down on that. And I'm just keeping it out away from my body, and now that's making sure it's not going to wrap on me.
Right. You're not just letting it go slack and peel off the reel.
Right, exactly. So I'm able to keep a little bit of tension on it and bring it out away from my body, away from my legs, which I don't want to get tangled up. So just the line management of knowing where it's going, that's ascending. Once you get to the surface, I think it's very much a two-man team. I'll have basically my buddy, without even talking, he's now pulling it up, keeping tension on it, and then I'm reeling it in.
Okay.
You don't want, you get up at the surface and all of a sudden you have this going on at the surface.
For sure.
Especially if you get a live fish that's swimming around you, you get sharks in the water. There definitely is some practice that you have to do line management wise just to keep this bundle of line from becoming a hazard. So, you know, one thing you can do is just a slight kick into the current, and feed it behind you, so at least all that line is not
wrapped around you.
It's
when the
fed
fish
off,
makes another run,
it's fed off behind you.
Gotcha.
I would say the safest way to manage that line, once you get the fish up, you have this, you know, diving in 60 feet of water, you have 60 foot of line. Instead of trying to deal with it on the surface, the quicker you can get into the boat, pull the whole mess onto it, and then you can deal with wrapping the line.
Now it's less important if you get tangled, right? So
you're on the boat.
Yeah, exactly. You're on, you know, somewhat dry land, and so the fish makes another run. If you are tangled, obviously that's not good, but you're not being pulled back under the water. So I think that's a huge takeaway: is if you can get, once the fish is out of the hole, getting back to the boat as quickly as possible, and then managing your reel line from the boat, I think is a huge deal.
Get back to the boat, honestly. So when I have this reel line on me and all this reel line is out, I'm not the one who's trying to grab the fish. I have my dive buddy. We're pretty big on the team hunting.
Absolutely.
And it's going to put more fish on the boat. It's going to keep everyone safer. So while I have all this line around me, I'm managing it safely out behind me. Now my buddy's grabbing the fish. Now we call the boat over. We're on the boat.
They're still handling the fish, and now you're managing the line so that we both don't get tangled up.
Absolutely.
I take care of the fish, you take care of the line. Nice.
Right.
I like it a lot. Cool. So yeah, awesome guys. I think a belt reel is definitely, as Kevin mentioned, something that is essential to your pole spear hunting. I think that as far as the spear guns mentioned, we talked about it a little bit earlier, once you feel confident and comfortable managing reel line, one reel, right? Then you can work on managing two. But before you get to a belt reel with spear guns, I highly recommend using a float line. And we've talked about that in other videos, and we'll have more to come on that topic. So yeah, lots of really cool stuff. We'll put links in the descriptions of all the items that you see up here and how to mess with those. And yeah, Kevin, thank you so much, man. I'm excited to get out there again and shoot some more fish with you, and definitely awesome. All right guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys did find value in this content, please be sure to leave us a like. We would love it if you guys do subscribe to our channel. And Kevin, how can our people find you out on the social world?
Yes, Facebook, Instagram, a little bit more active on the gram.
On the gram. What's your handle on Instagram?
Captain Mahaffey.
Okay,
and
right here.
I'm sure we'll put a link to that. Yeah, check me out.
Nice. Sounds good, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
See you guys.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did find value in this content, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave us a like. And if you had any questions on any of the content that we followed in this video or any of our other videos, just leave us a comment in the section below and we'll be sure to get back to you on that. And as always, you can find all of the products that we talk about, including this cool hat, on our website at flfreedivers.com, and we'll see you in the next one.